It's absolutely despicable, and it must stop. Silence. Silence and denial can hide much, but it can erase nothing. Some injustices are so heinous, so horrific, so grievous, they cannot be buried, no matter how hard people try. In my view, a major lesson of the Holocaust is, as mentioned earlier, was not inevitable. We know hate never goes away, it only hides. And given a little oxygen, it comes out from under the rocks. We also know what stops hate. One thing, all of us. The late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs described anti-Semitism as a virus that has survived and mutated over time. Together, we cannot continue to let that happen. We have to remember our basic principles as a nation. We have an obligation. We have an obligation to learn the lessons of history so we don't surrender our future to the horrors of the past. We must give hate no safe harbor against anyone. Anyone. From the very founding, our very founding, Jewish Americans, who represent only about 2% of the U.S. population, have helped lead the cause of freedom for everyone in our nation. From that experience, we know scapegoating and demonizing any minority is a threat to every minority and the very foundation of our democracy. So in moments like this, we have to put these principles that we're talking about into action. I understand people have strong beliefs and deep convictions about the world. In America, we respect and protect the fundamental right to free speech, to debate and disagree, to protest peacefully, and make our voices heard. I understand that's America, but there is no place on any campus in America, any place in America, for anti-Semitism or hate speech or threats of violence of any kind. Whether against Jews or anyone else. Violent attacks, destroying property, is not peaceful protest. It's against the law. And we are not a lawless country. We're a civil society. We uphold the rule of law. And no one should have to hide or be brave just to be themselves. To the Jewish community, I want you to know, I see your fear, your hurt, and your pain. Let me reassure you, as your president, you're not alone. You belong. You always have and you always will. And my commitment to the safety of the Jewish people, the security of Israel, and its right to exist as an independent Jewish state is ironclad, even when we disagree. My administration is working around the clock to free remaining hostages, just as we have freed hostages already, and will not rest until we bring them all home. My administration, with our second gentleman's leadership, has launched our nation's first national strategy to counter anti-Semitism that's mobilizing the full force of the federal government to protect Jewish communities. But we know this is not the work of government alone or Jews alone. That's why I'm calling on all Americans to stand united against anti-Semitism and hate in all its forms. My dear friend, who became a friend, the late Elie Wiesel, said, quote, "One person of integrity can make a difference." We have to remember that, now more than ever. Here in Emancipation Hall, the U.S. Capitol, among the towering statues of history, is a bronze bust of Raoul Wallenberg. Born in Sweden as a Lutheran, He was a businessman and a diplomat. While stationed in Hungary during World War II, he used diplomatic cover to hide and rescue about 100,000 Jews over a 6-month period. Among them was a 16-year-old Jewish boy who escaped a Nazi labor camp. After the war ended, that boy received a scholarship from the Hillel Foundation to study in America. He came to New York City penniless, but determined to turn his pain into purpose, along with his wife, also a Holocaust survivor. He became a renowned economist and foreign policy thinker, eventually making his way to this very Capitol on the staff of a first-term senator. That Jewish refugee was Tom Lantos, and that senator was me. Tom and his wife Annette and their family became dear friends to me and my family. Tom would go on to become the only Holocaust survivor ever elected to Congress, where he became a leading voice on civil rights and human rights around the world. Tom never met Raoul, who was taken prisoner by the Soviets, never to be heard from again. But through Tom's efforts, Raoul's bust is here in the Capitol. He was also given honorary U.S. citizenship, only the second person ever after Winston Churchill. The Holocaust Museum here in Washington is located on a road in Raoul's name. The story of the power of a single person to put aside our differences, to see our common humanity, to stand up to hate, and its ancient story of resilience from immense pain, persecution, to find hope, purpose, and meaning in life, we try to live and share with one another. That story endures. Let me close with this. I know these days of remembrance fall on difficult times. We all do well to remember. These days also fall during the month we celebrate Jewish American heritage. A heritage that stretches from our earliest days to enrich every single part of American life today. Great Jewish American, named Tom Lantos, used the phrase, "The veneer of civilization is paper thin. We are its guardians, and we can never rest." My fellow Americans, we must be those guardians. We must never rest. We must rise against hate, meet across the divide, see our common humanity, and God bless the victims and survivors of Shoah. May the resilient hearts, the courageous spirit, and the eternal flame of faith of the Jewish people forever shine their light on America and around the world. Pray God. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the museum's Bringing the Lessons Home program introduces Washington, D.C. area public high school students to Holocaust history and encourages them to share its lessons with their family, friends, and community. Now in its 30th year, over 900 students from over 130 schools have completed the program and become museum ambassadors. We are gratified to have 6 ambassadors taking part in the memorial candle lighting.
My name is Maya Riggs, and I remember.
My name is Vivian Monaco, and I remember.
My name is Ana Elizondo, and I remember.
My name is Mia Martin Eskandarani, and I remember.
My name is Sanaya Evans, and I remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have more than 30 Holocaust survivors with us today. And now some will share memorial reflections.
My name is Alfred Munzer. Most of my family lives in a box of photographs that I hold sacred. The box holds the memories of members of my family, most of whom were deported and did not come back. This photo shows my uncle Emil, my two sisters, my father and my mother, enjoying a day in the park shortly before the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands and before I was born. My sisters were denounced and murdered in Auschwitz. Uncle Emil was on the same transport and suffered the same fate. My father, after forced labor in several camps, was liberated at Ebensee, but succumbed 2 months later. I will always remember my father Simcha, my uncle Emil, and my sisters Eva and Leah. Thank you.
My name is Ray Goldfarb. In my hand is a photo of my mother Dina and my brother Shlomo. This is the only possession that remains from my life before the Holocaust. The photo had been pulled out of the trash by our neighbor, who wanted a keepsake of our friend who had disappeared. It was given to my mother after liberation, when she returned to our hometown in Poland. My brother was only 4 years old when my mother placed him with a local farmer, but they were betrayed. The farmer was beaten and my brother was killed. I will always remember my brother Shlomo and the 3,000 members of the Jewish community in my hometown.
I'm Manny Mandel. The object I hold was my lifeline during those terrible months I spent in Bergen-Belsen. When I became ill, my mother read excerpts from this Hungarian edition of Robinson Crusoe. How lucky I was that my mother was allowed to stay with me and that I've been able to bring a piece of home with me. Many, including my extended family members, were not so lucky. They were deported, their belongings confiscated before they were murdered. I will always remember my grandmother, Rosa Brown Mandel, my maternal grandparents, Rabbi Aaron and Paula Klein, and my 7-year-old cousin, Judith Chrishaber, who were killed in Auschwitz. As we recite the Mourner's Kaddish and chant the traditional prayer for the soul of the dead with cantor Zell, I invite you to stand and hold high a photo that's on your chair. Together we honor their lives and remember them. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעולמה דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לאליו מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעולמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את כל הנשמות של 6 מיליוני היהודים חללי השואה באירופה, שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו ושנספו על קידוש השם בידי המרצחים הגרמנים ועוזריהם משאר העמים. באושוויץ, טרבלינקה, מיידנק, מאטהאוזן, ברגן-בלזן, סוביבור ובשאר מחנות השמדה שהלכו לעולמם. ובעבור שכל הקהל מתפלל לעילוי נשמותיהם, לכן בול הרחמים יסירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, ויעמדו וגורלם לקץ הימין, ונאמר אמן.
Ladies and gentlemen, Abe Foxman, Holocaust survivor and member of the United States Holocaust Memorial Council.
Mr. President, thank you for standing with us. Thank you. Teure und liebe Brüder und Schwestern, Cheris Apleto, wir stehen und wir seien da heint noch einmal zu geben Edes. My dear fellow survivors, we are here again today to stand and bear witness. I was born in the wrong time at the wrong place for a Jewish kid. Nazi-occupied Poland in 1940 was not the best place to be born. Yet, I managed to survive as a hidden child by the intercession of one special person's kindness, courage, compassion, decency, and most likely several miracles. As I grew older, I tried to understand what it is that I had survived. And the first set of questions were very serious existential questions of why. Why did the Shoah, the Holocaust, happen to the Jewish people? Why did over 1.5 million Jewish children perish? Why was the world silent? And why didn't the Almighty intervene? To those universal questions of why were added very personal questions of why. Why me? Why me? And not the Chanalach, the Shleimalach, the Saralach, the Meishalach. Why me? In that struggle to understand, two facts became clear. One is that the world knew. The world knew. There was no CNN, no Fox, there were no satellite feeds from faraway places, there was no internet, there was no 24/7 news, and yet the world knew. Those in positions of power to make decisions to stop what was happening knew. They knew how many Jews were killed in Lodz, in Baranovich, in Minsk, in Bialystok. They knew what was happening to the Jews. And as Ken Burns in his PBS series revealed to the world, revealed how much America knew and how little it did. So the first lesson for us is to know about anti-Semitism, bigotry, racism, to know who it is that threatens our democracy, our freedoms. It is important that we know, but knowing is not enough. The second thing that became clear to me was that wherever, whenever, however good people said no, whenever good people stood up and said no to hate, Jews lived, gays lived, Roma lived. There was an Oskar Schindler who saved 1,200 Jews. There was a Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat, who saved maybe 100,000 Jews. There were 60 diplomats who acted against the wishes of their governments and saved thousands of Jews. There was a Denmark, a Bulgaria, and Albania who saved all their Jews. I stand here today because there was a Polish Catholic lady who could barely read and write, who did not sit down and weigh and measure the risks, and yet risked her life every single day for 4 years to protect the life of another human being, a Jewish child. And her name was Bronislava Kurpi. She baptized me, gave me a false identity, and protected me from her neighbors as well as the Gestapo. So I stopped asking the questions of why and began to ask the questions on the order of what if. What if instead of one Raoul Wallenberg, there were 10,000? What if instead one Oskar Schindler, there were 10,000 Oskar Schindlers? What if this wonderful country of ours had permitted the passenger ship to St. Louis to dock at these shores and unload its cargo of refugees? What if we bombed Auschwitz? What if Canada had found room for 5,000 Jewish orphans? What if we traded trucks for Jews? What if Switzerland would have permitted the entry of Jewish orphans? The Dominican Republic said yes to Jewish refugees. Cuba said yes to Jewish refugees. But America and Canada said no. And sadly, there was no state of Israel to open its doors. Bearing witness also gives me an opportunity to say thank you to my nanny, Bronislava Kurpi, whom I never thanked and whom I never said goodbye to. Dear friends, the Holocaust did not begin with gas chambers. It began with words, ugly words, hateful words, demonizing, degrading, debasing Jews. And those words became ugly, hateful deeds. We need to speak up and out. We need to protest when anyone who is maligned or treated with contempt, no matter who the victim or the perpetrator, especially now when we live in such super polarized environment, politicized with a lack of civility and a lack of truth, enhanced by the so-called miracle, modern miracle of the internet. Jewish tradition teaches us that life and death is in the power of the tongue. 3 times a day, Jews who follow that tradition ask the Almighty, Nitzor lishoni mira, keep my mouth from speaking evil. We believe in the power of words, in the power of good people to stand up and say no. Never again was an 11th commandment etched in the aftermath of Auschwitz. It was etched by the Jewish people based on a Jewish experience. But never again that pledge, that imperative, that commandment has a universal message and mandate. For all of us today must bear witness and be faithful to the commandment which instructs all of us to never again be silent. Never again be silent whenever anyone is in fear, in danger, isolated, singled out because the color of their skin, their religion, their ethnic origin, their sexual orientation, or anything that makes them different from the rest. Who would have believed that we, the survivors, would in our lifetime bear witness to a global epidemic of anti-Semitism, including in our beloved country? That Israel, the Jewish state, would again be under attack. That the Jewish people would again be under attack. That Zionism, the national liberation movement of the Jewish people, would again be challenged and attacked. So it is again our responsibility, fellow survivors, not only to bear witness, but to shout out, for we dare not be silent. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Bloomfield, Director of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum.
Exactly 80 years ago, the war was beginning its long and deadly ending. Our soldiers were tirelessly fighting the Germans, who were relentlessly killing the Jews. And yet, at the same time, despite the odds, Jews were courageously resisting. Resistance movements in ghettos organized escapes and uprisings so Jews could flee to fight as partisans. The odds of successful resistance were very, very low, but the determination of the Jews was so very high. This year, we commemorate the 80th anniversary of an astonishing act of resistance at Auschwitz-Birkenau, of all places. Some of the Jews who were forced to operate the crematoria mutinied against their SS guards. 45 Jews were killed, including women who had supplied the resistors with explosives to blow up one of the crematorium. 1944 was also the year Hannah Senesh and others from Mandatory Palestine parachuted behind German lines. She was captured and killed. She was only 23. Like her, most of these resistors were young. Can you imagine making the decision to risk your life and leave your family and community when they were under such a massive assault and completely abandoned by the world? Throughout the Holocaust, Jews faced endless, horrific dilemmas, which is why they're called choiceless choices. Many Jews resisted in various ways. We do not know all their names, but we do know their deeds, and we know the valiant fight they fought for Jewish lives. They remain an example for all time of Jewish resistance and resilience, of Jewish determination and dignity. The Hymn of the Partisans, which we will now hear, was written by 21-year-old Hirsch Glick in the Vilna ghetto a year before he was killed. Every time I hear this song, I think about the unthinkable circumstances in which it was written and the continued refrain, "We are here, we are here." The remarkable story of Jewish resistance remains an inspiration for all times, and especially these times, as 8 decades later, Jews continue to refrain, "We are here, we are here."
Please stand for the singing of the Hymn of the Partisans, led by cantor Sonia Zell, and the retirement of the division flags.
Verstellen, wo ihr denkt,
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain at your seats until the official party departs. This concludes our program. Thank you for sharing our national commitment to Holocaust remembrance.
couldn't be right in the fucking middle, right? When that's all.
Move faster. Move faster.
They're moving in this direction now.
Much of a shot. Hopefully. I mean, there's like 50 people. I guess most of it's coming down the ramp on the left. Yeah, I saw him. It's gonna be blocked.
Don't give us away.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait. Wide.
Stay in your lane, Schultz.
Mr. President, TikTok just filed suit against the federal government. How do you respond? Do you have any response to the TikTok lawsuit, sir, over the law that you just signed, forcing its sale?
That was even worse than I expected.
It's worse than it.
Wait, who was it?
I mean, I had trouble finding in that mess.
I think they put the speaker, man.
Yeah.
That's it.